Hi, welcome back. Today, I would like to talk to you about sanders, and I'm going to show you the different sanders we have here in the shop, and then I am going to talk about sandpaper. But I'm mainly going to focus on handheld power tools, such as the disc sander, the square sander, and the random orbital sander, and the handheld belt sander. But behind me is our wide belt sander. It's got a 36-inch belt in it, and I'll show you the inside on that. And these belts, they just spin and run. Then we also have here at the shop, we have a edge sander. It is right here, and it just puts the board on the edge. We also have over here at the back of the shop, we have a spindle sander, and next to that we have a disc, which is here, and then the belt sander, which is there. But today I really want to focus on just the handheld power tool part, as I'm getting ready to mail out to deliver your hammers, and that way you can understand what sanders are what, so that way you know how everything is going. So first off, I want to show you is a belt sander. Belt sander looks like this. It takes different belts. They're all the same size. This one happens to be a 4 by 24 belt. The belt, you pull the lever here, this lever that goes in here. You pull that out, and the belt comes off, and you have a belt. Okay. The thing that you want to make sure with these belts is some of the belts are bi-directional, whereas some of the belts are only one directional, and you need to make sure that the belt is going the correct way, or else the tape that holds the seam together will get caught and throw it apart. I'm going to plug this in so you can see how it runs, and then I'll move on to the next one. So you can see this here. I'm going to pull the trigger. One of the downsides of using a sander like this is a lot of students forget about the power cord, and I would always say throw the power cord over your shoulder. That way you know where it's at. But as you can see in the past, some students have run the power cord over and it sucks it in the sander. Not a good thing. The next sander I want to show you is a disc sander with pneumatics, and you pull the trigger and it spins. It also has a Velcro pad on it, like the random orbital sander that I'll show you here in a second. You can adjust the speed to this. You'll find this in a lot of body shops and cabinet shops. It actually works really well. The next sander that I want to talk to you about is the random orbital sander, and this is the one that students are sometimes afraid of at first, then they end up liking it. It's just right here. The pads are kind of a Velcro fit on there. You can hear that tearing off. It's got the holes in it so that there is supposed to be a bag here on the back that collects the dust. So that way the dust goes into the hole and out in the bag. When you turn it on, it just spins. This sander, it won't hurt you if you take it and hold it like that. It can and will hurt you if you start it, and I'll let you see this here. Just start it going and let it spin, and then get it spin real fast. The edge of it will cut you. That's when it would cut. But normally, just under normal usage, as you're using it, if you bump your hand, it's probably not gonna cut you. Now it can, but probably not likely to. Then the last sander that we have is a little quarter sheet sander, and the paper on this, it slips in here. It's a little bar you lift up, and then you slip the paper in. This one has regular paper in it because that's what we use after we put on finish to knock down the burrs as a last coat. It just kind of buffs out the finish. You can use newspaper, newspaper, brown paper bag or printer paper, it doesn't really matter. Just something to kind of buff out the finish. That's why this one just has regular paper on it. Same sound here. And it's not going to hurt you either. So those are the sanders that we have in the shop. It just depends on what you want to do and how you want to use it. What I also want to go over with you is the sandpaper itself and the grits that we have. I'm holding a piece here, and I highly doubt that you can tell through the camera the different grits, so I'm just going to explain it. This one on the back side, it says 80 grit, 80p, and what that means is that this grit, it's got 80 grains per square inch, I believe, or something like that. There's so many grains per square inch, and that's how many grains are there. This one's marked 120. You can see it there, and it's a finer paper than the last one. And then the next one that I have right here at my fingertips is a 180. That one, the numbers are all stamped off, so I'll get one that you can read. Here, this one's a 180, and it's just going to be a finer grit again. So the bigger the number, the finer it is. When you're sanding your project, you want to start out with a lower grit and then progressively work yourself to a higher grit. Sandpaper can go all the way into the thousands. In woodworking, we don't need to go that far. 220 is well far enough. You'll have some people that want to do a 320 or a 400, and here 220 is far enough. When you're sanding, you just need to get it smoothed out, and then you bump to the next grit. You can physically polish the wood with the sandpaper, which is all you're doing is you're knocking out all the scuffs and scars. The next thing I want to talk to you about is if you're just going to hand sand. So let me get a board here so I can show you which way you want to hand sand and why. Alright, so I've got my board here, and I have my sandpaper if you're going to hand sand. And you can hand sand with square paper, round paper, it doesn't matter. But when you hand sand, you always want to go with the grain. So you can sand cross grain, and it does sand the board, but it puts more scratches in it. And when you do that, it makes it harder for you to put the finish on. So I'm going to do a little piece right here. Try and hold this up so you can see it here. I'm sanding cross grain, which is the way I do not want to sand. And I don't know if you'll be able to see that in the camera or not. And you can see kind of all the little scratches there that it put in right above my finger. Then if I go and sand with the grain, right up here, you don't see as many of the scratches right next to my finger, whereas you did up here. And then I would want to take that and move from 80 to 120, sand it some more, and then move it again from 120 to 150, then move it again from 150 to 180, and then move it again from 180 to 220. If you are missing some sandpapers and you don't have a 220, you can skip every other one. It's more work for you with that next higher grit, so it's better to go in it at each step at a time, but I also understand that you may not have all those grits. Cost wise, each of these little discs are typically right around $1 each. Sometimes they're cheaper, sometimes they're not, but they're usually right around $1 each. If you are trying to save some money and you know that you're only going to need a couple of pieces, you can take a sheet of 120 with another piece of 120 and rub them together, just 3 hits, 1, 2, 3, and that will give you a piece that is like 240. And the reason why I say that's 240 is 120 plus 120 is 240, and you've knocked half of the grains off by doing that 3 times. You can sit there and just rub it forever and it be perfectly smooth, but you're wanting a higher grit. So you don't always have to have the next one. You can kind of do a makeshift on making your own. So I hope that this has been informational for you on the different types of sanders that we have, which are as far as handheld power tools, we have the belt sander, we have the random orbital sander, we have the square quarter sheet sander, and we have the aired sander, the air disc sander. I hope it's been informational for you on knowing that as far as the sandpaper goes, the bigger the number, the finer the grit, the later you use it in the process. So I do not want to finish sanding with an 80 grit. That's where I want to start. I want to finish with something 180 or higher. I also told you about how after you apply finish, and we'll do a finish video, you can use newspaper after you apply finish on it to help smooth out the finish. Then I showed you around the shop and showed you that we have a big belt sander, a disc sander, an edge sander, and a spindle sander. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for your time.